And good afternoon on this Wednesday. I'm not sure where you are, but here in the nation's capital of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, it is a little overcast outside. And when it's overcast, what you have to do is find yourself a ray of sunshine. And we have that today in our guest. What a great segue. That's why I get paid the big bucks, ladies and gentlemen. Usually I meander and go all over the place talking about our guest, but I want to get right to it. Because she has so much that she's going to bring to the table. And I'm really excited about this conversation. It is the Chief Operating Officer for the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and that is Jackie King. Jackie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great way to spend my lunch.
Yes, that's true. Now, how are you? First off, how are you managing, and what's your workload been like during this global pandemic and everything else that we're dealing with?
The workload has been enormous. We're leading the business response for the on COVID, so it's been around the clock, and we've mobilized this broad network and created a campaign. We're working with government, so it's nonstop.
I want to get into that, the depth of your work, and I want to get to first the Canadian Business Resilience Network, and it's designed essentially to support smaller and medium-sized businesses. I'm not going to pretend to know what I'm talking about, so I'll let you carry the torch from there. What is this program?
So we saw the pandemic coming pretty early on, and so we started to, we have so many business members, large and small, and we have such a vast network that we wanted to put things out. Mostly it was pretty basic. We just put things on our site. Business preparedness, business continuity. We didn't know it was going to turn into this. But as things started to progress, we recognized that, we're uniquely positioned to convene all of, we've got 450 chambers of commerce and boards of trade that are members. We have over 100 industry and business associations that are members of ours. And through them, they represent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of businesses. So we wanted to bring them together, create tools and essentially help businesses, especially the small ones and those that are most vulnerable, to prepare for the pandemic and persevere through it, and also to prosper as we come out of it. So we've mobilized this network, and we are bringing not just our thinking. We're not the best experts in all of this, but we're synthesizing and analyzing what the government supports are and how that best can be delivered to small businesses, and even using our own larger corporate members to deliver some insights and information. But it's ultimately giving business a platform so that we're engaging them in the right way to make sure governments are making the right decisions on their behalf. But also giving them the information in one easy hub. There's so much of it out there, and also giving them the tools that they can use to, customize for their own businesses to help them, whether it's business continuity or now we're obviously into reopening mode, and then we'll quickly shift into recovery and the tools to support them.
I think it's so valuable to have an ally during a crisis, a chaotic moment, a storm, an ally who has some answers. But more importantly, I think like-minded ally who has the same questions. So now you're not navigating on your own, trying to find the answers to questions that are substantive, that are life-changing, and in a lot of ways strike home in a very personal level for a lot of people. Does it not?
Yeah, absolutely. It is very personal. It is very emotional. The stories we're hearing from businesses, both on, how am I going to, keep the doors open, to, wow, I'm thinking of things and being innovative in ways that I never thought that I would. And so there's all these innovation stories. And what we're trying to do essentially too is build that community. Because when you are in a crisis, you're stronger together. That hashtag in this together and stronger together, those ring true for a reason. And that's ultimately what we're trying to create. Government helping business, a large business helping small business learning from each other, and then that feedback loop to help us advocate on their behalf.
And all roads for an entrepreneur lead to the idea of growth and needing to be agile and needing to adapt. So in some ways, this is another challenge they face. It's unique, but some of the tools that they've used to incorporate within their strategy to be successful are still right there in front of them. And maybe if it's such an emotional time, but to step out away from the emotion and say, okay, how do we solve the problem?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the best thinking comes from diverse brains and voices. So
Yeah.
the more we engage people, because it's not just a push out of information and then we take that information and package it and put there is a dialogue happening through all of that. And you had mentioned entrepreneurs. The very heart of an entrepreneur is problem solving and coming up with ideas and implementing ideas that benefit society and people in general.
The Chamber of Commerce has introduced two surveys, one April 29th, 2020. And essentially what I imagine that was an opportunity to sort of get a lay of the land. What's going on in the hearts and minds of entrepreneurs that are out there. You've gotten those numbers and that data. What did you find in that data? And is it directly connected to the next survey where you want more information? It's almost like you've gone underwater, you've seen part of the glacier, but you want to see more of it now?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We started large, and those that took the time, which were around 14,000 businesses, took the time to respond to it. It was quite a long survey. We wanted to get a lay of the land and get a sense of confidence and where people are. Now you're going to see a more surgical approach to our surveying going forward, and of course. We're partnering with the best statisticians and world recognized with Statistics Canada, which they don't typically do this kind of thing. So that was even novel. So we're and data is king. We can make assumptions on what we think businesses need or what the sentiment and the emotion is, but until you ask them and engage them, you don't know for sure. And the other thing is when you ask and they give an opinion, they start to see that reflected back in the services and the supports that are put in place delivered to them, they're going to be more inclined to share that information and have that voice.
I want to segue that to Joanne Pollock, and you worked with Joanne for the longest time, and we know Joanne's a great woman and a great coach, and former both of us actually, she was our boss, mine in the football days, and for you with Helen Knowlton, but she talks about proof points, and yes, there's an emotional outcry. This is an emotional time, but the proof points and get an accurate sense of the story allows you to officially problem solve, does it not?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you'd be tone deaf if you didn't acknowledge the emotion but if you're going to make rational decisions and there are going to be winners and losers and everything, that's where the data and the proof points come in. To back up whatever we're putting to government. And that's why the data is so important. We can say, businesses are asking for X, Y, and Z, but if we don't have the proof points of that data to back it up, then, there's so many asks in right now. So that even helps to elevate our asks with government.
So you've been dealing now with three major game-changing scenarios. One, the changing landscape in terms of politics, especially south of the border, and how it affects Canada. You're talking about COVID-19 and how work has almost come to a standstill for so many people and businesses have been affected. And now we're also dealing with racial tension, racial injustice. There's a lot going on. And how have you been able to navigate these waters? Because they have been treacherous, to say the least, for a long period of time.
Yeah, I mean, you've listed only three. Then we go back to the rail blockades and pipeline issues and the environment and. So in terms of navigating, when I first joined the chamber, one of the things that we were known for, the voice of business, but we also recognized that if we're going to be the voice of business, we have to lead by example. And early on, within the last 2 years, we've developed this inclusive growth initiative and campaign. And because our purpose is not just to make profits for business, it is to contribute to a stronger economy and prosperity for communities and citizens. So in terms of navigating that, we're trying to step up as leaders, not just in our organization, but business in general. You're seeing stories, for example, of businesses helping out in the community, helping smaller businesses. We've just launched a program with one of our larger corporate members that are giving out $10,000 grants to to businesses struggling. And then, in terms of, what's happening, in the US and all of the, tackling racism and we're not going to pretend that it doesn't exist in Canada. So we need to step up and have a voice and not be afraid to get into that debate either. So it really is leading by example and ensuring that our business members are integrated in all facets of not just society, of the economy, but society, and taking a stand and being responsible and doing their part in all of that mix.
Put on your prognosticator's hat on in terms of what will it look like, the business landscape 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and what will the new normal, in your estimation, your professional estimation, what will that look like?
That's a great question, and if I had the answers to that, I'd be a bajillionaire and doing this podcast from my jet. Well, not my jet, because that's not environmentally friendly, but no, seriously, I don't think that there is going to be a new normal as a destination. Okay. I think it's going to be an evolving normal. And I think that when we look back, we'll see agility, innovation, and we will return to growth. That's inevitable. How we get there, that's what's being discussed right now. So I don't think there is anyone that can tell you what a new normal is going to be like. It is going to be an evolving state.
Let's say between the guy, the weed whacker outside my window, and the police, this is a really well-produced segment. I'm having fun with this one.
Well, there's some sirens out there too. Maybe we've said something that's offside, and they're coming to get us.
You get a bang on the door, look out. Hey, this segment's always been organic, so I was playing around this morning trying to figure out what I wanted to ask you, some questions, and I came across a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's an astrophysicist. You've probably heard of him. Brilliant mind, far smarter than I'll ever be. And his quote was, "We have learned to love the question themselves. Therein is the soul of curiosity. Therein is the foundation of wonderment." Moving forward, I think there's going to be a lot of questions, but our ability to not fear the questions, and to almost, in terms of muscle memory, get in the habit of solving questions. And maybe that's something we hadn't been doing previous to this global pandemic. Maybe we got a little too comfortable in some ways. And this adaptation, this change has moved us to an express lane, to the collector lane, where things are a little slower, we're seeing things, and we're becoming skilled at different ways of approaching the day.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And that's a really insightful question, because I think it is about the journey to solution as opposed to what's the answer. I mean, the uncertainty is creating anxiety, but the opportunity comes from the problem solving through asking the right questions, which leads to another question and another question. So I think you're right.
There's a bit of a domino effect there. And I think that as a species, it's in our DNA to adapt. We need to connect, we need to communicate and collaborate in a bid to conquer. If we didn't have that skill set, we wouldn't have survived. So I'm hopeful, and my hope is that what we're dealing with now will serve as a launch pad, a conduit to better times.
Yeah.
We may not realize it right now, because some people will be asked to make a sacrifice on behalf of others. But at the end of the day, if it benefits the group as a whole, then we're better for that experience and that journey.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so many examples of that. I was just on a call earlier today, and we were talking about the adoption. There's all these change management programs that are put in place for employees to adopt these new technology and tools. Well, boom, crisis hit, boom, you're working virtually. People adapt pretty quickly, and the uptake on using these tools. And then you look at another part of where society is, and people are being more mindful and kind to each other. What's happening in the United States aside from that, but that people are more reflective, and they're taking time to live in the moment. And so I think even we're going to be better people out of this on a whole.
I agree completely. I think our own personal ethos, what motivates us when we wake up in the morning. Right now, I think we wake up, and for a lot of people, it's a little frightening because we don't know what's on the other side. But I don't think it's a I don't think it's necessarily a cliff that we're fearing. I think it's that slow slope downwards, where
Yeah.
before you know it, you've gained momentum going down where you can't turn back and get up the hill. And I
Yeah.
think people, their ethos will change, what drives them and what creates the right place in the right time on a daily basis. Because I think
Yeah.
when we wake up, I've said this many times, we wake up in the morning, we consciously or subconsciously ask ourselves one basic question all the time, and that is, are we where we need to be?
Yeah.
And if we're not,
Yeah.
that means we're going in the wrong direction. If we are, then whatever we face in our day, good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to accept because we're in that right place.
Yeah.
And what strikes me about you and what was important for me to have you on this segment was because you've been in that right place for a long time, but it wasn't easy.
No, no.
It started back at Algonquin College and taking PR and really just trying to figure out your way on a day-to-day basis, was it not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, before living in the moment and being present was trendy. I felt like, looking back, I was doing just that, and that's the only way I could have survived, without losing it or failing. But yeah, it was, I went back to school when my kids were in school full time, and very quickly became a single mom, and so figuring out, talk about uncertainty. What am I going to do? How am I going to feed my family? And and so you have to find ways to live in the moment. And sometimes it was getting through the week or getting through the day. And sometimes it was like, I just need to make it through to this hour, or make it through to nap time or bedtime or whatever it is. And so it trained me to live more in the moment and to be more resilient, because things always work out the way they're supposed to, whether you think know what that is or not. But it's fine. So I think resilience was a big part of what I gained through that experience, and I wouldn't change it, quite frankly.
The interesting thing is, even though you're not wearing a football helmet and pads, your journey and your approach really similar to an athlete's approach, where small successes, or a series of small successes will lead you to greater things. But if you start focusing on the end of the road and there's greater margin for error, then you start thinking it's an all or nothing affair. And so you go from excited to flatlining to excited. That emotional roller coaster is going to slowly kill you.
Exactly. And it's overwhelming when you think, you have big lofty goals and you see the end, but they're so huge. If you don't break that down into bite-sized chunks and to your point, the victories along the way, and I'm a very impatient person. So if I'm not where I want to be tomorrow, I consider myself a failure. So and that just, that just keeps you back.
How has that influenced your leadership, your type of leadership, and how you've coached people up and set other people up for success?
Another good question.
Maybe it's instinctive. Maybe you haven't ever thought about it, and maybe you don't want to think about it. But you just do.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I do get asked that question a lot, in different forms. But when I think about the kind of leader that I am now, is probably not that different than the way I parent or, how I managed what I did as a waitress. So it is all about, my style now, and what I've learned from that is not to be afraid of failure. So and learning from it. I mean, I am constantly in learning mode myself, because I fail all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So really, in terms of empowering people, encouraging people, giving them the opportunity to try things and fail, and try things that aren't necessarily perfect yet, but still taking a chance, and supporting from behind. I heard this once, and I can't remember where I read it or heard it on a podcast, but I'm going to steal it anyway. And it's the analogy of, most people think of, leadership is about being a chess master, and you move this piece and you move that piece, and you're game planning. Whereas I find myself more of, a gardener, in terms of, a gardener is not the plant that's growing, but the gardener creates the environment of success for those plants to grow and thrive and be beautiful. And so that's kind of how I see it. How I see myself. I like to lead from behind. It really is so rewarding to see people grow. And if you want people to grow, you have to give them the opportunity to do so. Give them wings, whatever it is, but also be there for them if things don't work out, and get them right back up. If they do fail. And give
I recall working with you, and again, Marion, my experience working with you, and then working with Joanne Pollock. It was very personal, and it was very friendship driven. You still had a job to do. You had to be responsible. You had to be a consummate pro and all that. But at the same time, it's really about creating an environment where people can succeed.
Yeah.
And metrics are important. Numbers are important.
Absolutely.
Bottom lines are important. But there's always that shift, right? And if it's shifting more towards the numbers versus away from the relationships, you're going to get yourself into some trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not sustainable either. Yeah. And my philosophy is always, if, I manage numbers, like I'm a business geek. I like all of that.
Yeah.
But that's an outcome. And I believe that if you do all the right things, the numbers will take care of themselves. Not that I'm blind to them and you're managing it, but if you're motivating people by meet your numbers, get the profit, do this, achieve this target. No, you have to create a sense of purpose and align people behind that purpose and empower them to do their role in achieving it as a team. And I did learn that from Joanne Pollock. She's been a mentor for me and an inspiration for me as a leader. And she's one of my closest friends to this day, because it is ultimately at the heart of everything about relationships. Whether you're parenting, whether you're leading, if you don't build trust and you don't have a reciprocal, respectful relationship, you're not going to build loyalty. You're not going to build commitment, because especially in this day and age, it's people aren't just checking in and out. You have to have them engaged and committed fully, and you can't do that if you don't build relationships.
What's the vision of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce moving forward?
The vision overall is really to continue with the mission and do it 10x fold now, and ultimately fulfill our purpose, which is to create a strong economy, competitive Canada, and that benefits not just business but all of our communities and all of our citizens. That's why we're in this.
And where does that does it stand and align with the next chapter for Jackie King?
Oh wow. Since those chapters have not been written yet, it's hard to say. Every time, every performance evaluation, where do you see yourself in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? I have no idea. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that I'm winging it. So I have, 2 guiding principles that determine my future and anything I do. I want to lead, and I want to make a difference. So as long as I'm doing those things, I'll keep going, and whatever that leads to, and have fun doing it. And people.
The powerful notion about that question about where Jackie King in the next 2 years, 3 years, leads us back to the idea that we've learned to love the question. And if you're in your right place in the right time, then that question is exciting. I don't know, but I'm really excited about what's around the corner, versus I don't know, but I'm hoping I don't get punched in the head again by life.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And when I do, I just, I have my pity moments, and then I pull up my socks and punch right back. But it is the excitement of the unknown for me. I thrive in chaos. I like problem solving. And if I knew exactly what, some people are very much like that. They need to know what's ahead. I'm the opposite. I like, the opportunity, and I don't want to pigeonhole myself either and restrict myself from really cool opportunities. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
That's true.
Yeah.
Jackie King, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
For making time. The COO of the Canadian
Always
Chamber
for you.
of Commerce. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
To you and you're obviously the Chamber of Commerce team, but also to the family.
Thank you. Yours as well.
I'm a big memory and a bit of the schmooze when it comes to sentimental stuff. And I know your son more than I know your daughter, because your son was a football player.
Yeah.
Jordan. And we were talking off camera, and how I feel about him. And I'll never forget the moment when we were able to wrangle a tryout for him with the Red Blacks when they first came to town. And he's at Carleton with the free agent camp, doing his thing and competing and trying to get there. And there you are, watching him.
Oh my God. Yeah.
What struck me was that I watched you watch him, and you're watching him not as the football player, Jordan, the football player, the athlete, compete against other athletes, but I almost got a sense you're looking at him like he was that 3 or 4 year little boy. First time he picked up a ball, or they said, "Mommy, I want to play football."
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, very, very much so. And you know, it's and I still see him as my little boy, even though he's, 6'5", he's
I know,
and covered in tattoos, and he's still my little baby. But it's funny on the sports side. I was a mom as the spectator. And he'd come off, and he would, we were talking about hockey. He was a goalie, and he was very hard on himself. And oh, sweetie, you're doing so great. That was awesome. Mom, I let in 8 goals. Yeah, but it wasn't 10. And, it could have been worse. Would you just treat me like the other dads and give me, crap about my performance and stop calling me sweetie?
Yeah. But all those other kids now, when their dads are yelling at them, are now in a water tower looking for a guy that looks like their dad to beat the crap out of. So, I think you did right by Jordan, and he's a great kid. And
Thank you.
I think the world of him. So,
well, it's mutual.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a great day and keep well, everybody.
Thank you. That's Jackie King, CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Coming up next week, Neil Delary is going to be joining us, Jackie King. And Rob Notman from Optimum Talent. And I'm not sure if you know Rob.
Yeah, I do. Great guest. Wow.
He and I were board members of the Boys and Girls Club back in the day. So those are a couple of the guests. I'm looking at Henry Burris as well, and a couple other people. So
fantastic.
The bar has been elevated thanks to Jackie King. So those guys show up with their A game.
Well, you're way too kind, but thank you.
All right, Jackie. Thank you. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye. That's it for this leadership and coaching segment. That was Jackie King, COO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining me. Again, we got some great guests coming around the corner. Anil Delary of Save It Like Sully. He worked at Hill and Knowlton back in the day, but now he's got his own presentation company teaching professionals how to present properly, and the guy is outstanding. And so I'm excited about picking his brain, his heart. And then we also have, as I mentioned, Rob Notman, and he is with Optimum Talent downtown, and he's responsible for the offices here through Eastern Ontario. And we're going to talk transitions, career transitions, and just the managing transitions during a time of chaos and upheaval in our day. So I'm really excited about both of those guests as well. A shout out to Chris Corvo, producing in upstate New York. It's on the other side of Prescott. The sun just came in. Look at that. So things got brighter here for some reason. And the weed whacker guy just went away as well. And my backdrop went off. This is what you call multitasking. Just got to do what you got to do. I'll be ready for Apollo 14 should that mission ever fail and they need someone to get the ship back to Earth. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, stay well, and I will talk to you again real soon.